In this video I'm going to be printing the deep sleep gun or flame gun from Logan's Run. Now when I was a kid I watched the TV programme and I've seen the film dozens of times, and there's just something that's always amazed me about the deep sleep gun. It was just one of those iconic movie weapons, I think, and it's just made quite an impression on me. So with 3D printing I've taken almost the route of taking it slow, really. So I've been printing 3D test cubes, I've been printing different simple models to test the filament and temperatures and that type of thing, really to get to know the printer before taking on anything complex. I recently did the knife handle, which was an exciting project because it was my first project that I designed something from scratch, whereas this is an exciting project because not only is it the deep sleep gun from Logan's Run, but also it's the most sophisticated model that I've yet printed. This is the complete model, but in actual fact all of the separate elements will be printed separately in order to then put the model together. So you've got the front barrel section with the bit here that sticks down. You've got the middle barrel, then you've got the rear barrel, and then you've got the cap at the end, and then you've got these little add-ons like the switch, or the switch here, this little thing that is at the front, this bit on the side, and the trigger as well. And then you've got two halves of the frame itself, and then you've also got the two hand guards, which are also separately printed. So there's quite a few elements to this. Now I'm using Repetier to slice the model, or slice the individual parts of the model, and again I'm using Repetier really because it's kind of my go-to slicer, just because it was included on the memory stick of the 3D printer, the artillery sidewinder. So it's what I've been using, it's kind of what I'm more familiar with. However, I am finding that the settings are such that whilst it's a really quick print speed, I don't get as good as results, probably due to the settings, as I do in something like Cura. But I'm going to use this anyway just for familiarity, and because it's a test, it's an exercise, it's my first complex model. And then what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go through slicing each individual part of the model. I'll go straight into printing, and then we can actually, after the printing, we can look at all the different component parts and then look how it goes together. So let's move on to the next stage. And here we start the printing. So we're printing the handle grips first, and the file name at the top correlates to which part of the print I'm printing. And as we can see, it's printing up the layers, and one of the problems I had here was just the slight curling on the corner, which you can just about see, and that was basically due to bed adhesion. The side of the frame itself, so this is the right hand side of the frame it's printing now, this was spot on, perfect. And I was cleaning the bed each time with acetone just to make sure it's completely clean, and I think this was fine, only because I made sure that this area of the bed was clean. Whereas this side, this handle, part of the handle, I actually had to print 3 times, so this is the 3rd attempt, and it just wasn't clean enough, and I wasn't cleaning it with acetone every single time. And I think that's one of the things I've learned. I need to clean it every time in order to get the best adhesion. But you can see all the different aspects of the frame there, and the hole for the trigger. And then we print the smaller sections here, the trigger itself, and also the small parts. So we do the small parts first. So this is the inside of the trigger to give it springiness, and it's the a pin that goes through. And then we've got these are the side parts that actually hold the frame together, which go above the grip, and there's actually a pin on the left hand side which is going to print in a moment, which is quite tall, and that actually goes through the body of the frame, as you can see. And then we're doing the trigger itself, which is quite a quick print, and then we move on to the barrel sections. So the first part we're going to do is the front part of the barrel. Now there's a lot of supports that actually go with this front part of the barrel, and you notice that there's a big area there, a big brim, and basically I needed that because it wasn't sticking at first, and I needed to basically give it something to give it more support on the bed. And in fact, actually, acetone and probably less of a brim or skirt would have actually helped better. But you can see just how much time it's taking to print this section, because there's so much support material going inside the actual front part of the barrel itself, so that it can give structure to it as it's kind of doing the top bit, like you can see there. And then we move on to the main part of the barrel, and again, just belt and braces really. I made sure that it had a big brim, and I actually expanded that brim so that it was larger than it probably needed to be in order to give it structure. But as I say, I think the lesson I've learned with this is actually better bed adhesion, a cleaner bed, especially with acetone, will make sure that I don't need to use such a big skirt or brim in order to make it fit. And as you can see, this bit's quite tall because this is the main part of the barrel. And then we've got the back part, which as you can see, there was a little bit of excess material that I had to pull off then. Camera moved it back into position, but then we're doing the final part of the actual barrel itself, and then finally the end cap. And it's the end cap that's going to screw onto the end in order to fill the back of the barrel and complete it. And here we have all of the component parts to the deep sleep gun or flame gun here on the table. And overall, I'm quite happy with how things came out. But again, one of the brilliant things about this is it's a learning curve. And by doing all of this, I'm learning. And as you can see here, there's a bit of plastic stuck on the edge. It was a brim that was going around the model. I thought it would help it adhere to the bed, when actually, because it was such a flat item, it didn't need that anyway. But then if you compare it to something like the handle, you can see basically it's curled up slightly at the end, and I think that was adhesion. Once I learned that and I cleaned the bed, you can see other bits have come out really well with no curling or anything at all. So that, making sure the bed was clean and the items or the parts could adhere to the bed, made a big difference. And here you can see here really straight edges, really smooth. It's very impressive. And even though I'm learning that the print settings within Repetier are not quite as precise or as Cura, as you can see here, the results are pretty good, and even with using Repetier. There's an incredible amount of infill on the barrel, as we can see here, and because I printed it from the bottom up, part of the supports right at the bottom have really stuck to the end of the barrel, and it's very difficult to get that off, as you can see. And there's a lot of support within the barrel I need to get out as well, which I'll look at in a moment. Yeah, that's really stuck and very difficult to get out, and I'll have to pick all that out, I think. So there's a lot of time as went into the printing of the barrel, as you could see from the print earlier. And then you've got all the other smaller component parts. You've got the end cap, and what's quite impressive with the end cap is you've actually got a thread, slight curling there on the edge, where basically is the adhesion wasn't quite right on that part of the bed, but it's printed the thread fine. That's really quite impressive. So a bit of tidying up on those edges, bit of filing, bit of sanding, that would probably tidy up okay, but that's fine as it is. In terms of all the parts that go together, you've got the trigger that fits into the gap in the handle itself, and you've got a little pin that goes through to actually keep the trigger in position. So we can see that if I just put it together very temporarily at a moment like this. And it's actually the side panel that has the pin that keeps all those component parts together, which will just feed through one side and then into the trigger. It's a little bit tight, that hole, but I'll loosen that up with a round file just to give it a bit more room for the pin to go through, and then through the trigger and into the other side. And if I speed this next bit up, we can see how it all goes together, and the trigger goes in, and you've got the side part, and then you've got the handle that goes underneath that, and then you've got the little plastic bit that goes on there, the little switch there, and then you've got the main part, which goes into the back of the rear of the barrel. The front of the barrel goes into the hole, the cap goes on, and there we have it. That's essentially the finished deep sleep gun or flame gun from Logan's Run. So as we saw a moment ago, in the front part of the barrel there was a lot of support that helped give the print structure as it was printing, and now I've picked out all the support. Here it is, and it's an amazing amount of plastic that was actually inside. It must have taken about 15 minutes to pick it all out, and even though it came away relatively easily, essentially because it was kind of filling the total inside of the cavity of the front barrel, it just took it was very fiddly, and it like ages and ages of just probing and prodding and trying to use the file, trying to use cutters, trying to use tweezers to get everything out. But it was amazing how it gives it this structure to print around. It's quite amazing, really. And here we have the finished model. Now, as you'll see, there's a little bit of a problem, and essentially one of the things I keep forgetting with PLA is just how fragile it is. So once I'd taken all the supports out, I was gripping the front barrel in order to push it onto the middle part of the barrel, and my grip broke it, unfortunately. Now, one of the brilliant things is that it's a very clean break, so I'm hoping it will go back together. But essentially the top bits pushed into each other, and I've used glue to stick all the bits together, and you'll see where there's bits of glue that are still needs to be rubbed down and removed, but I can do that as I tidy up the rest of the model. But one of the first things I need to do is just repair that barrel. Because it was a clean break, as you can see, amazingly it's gone together really, really well, and it's very difficult to actually tell where the break was. So I used quite strong glue, just because I wanted to make sure that it was a very strong bond, but it's gone together brilliantly well, and just wait for that to dry, and then the model, apart from some tidying up, is finished. And here we have the finished model. So it's not perfect, there's lots of rough edges, there's bits that didn't work quite as well as I'd hoped, but I've learned a lot, and the main thing is that I now have a deep sleep gun from Logan's Run in my collection, which is absolutely amazing. It's something I've wanted for years and years and years, and now I've got it, so I couldn't be more chuffed, even though I know that the next version I do of this print will be better because of all the lessons I've learned. So hopefully this has been of interest to you. It's been of interest to me because I've learned so much, and I look forward to doing more complex projects in the future. Thank you for watching.